Subscribe now because what you're about to hear isn't just a hip-hop scandal. It's the unraveling of an empire, a betrayal so deep it shattered decades of brotherhood in a single, explosive night. And by the time security burst through the velvet curtain, it was already too late. Dipset, the dynasty born from Harlem grit and blinding ambition, had just imploded under the weight of money, power, and pride, as Cam'ron stood over a bloodied, breathless Jim Jones while fans screamed and cameras flashed, not knowing this was the beginning of the end. And the most shocking twist wasn't even caught on tape. Because what ignited this war wasn't just a petty ego clash. It was years of manipulation, betrayal, and a silent coup that had been brewing behind closed doors while fans sang "We Fly High," oblivious to the civil war inside the house of Dipset. And now the truth is breaking loose like a riot. On the night of the brawl, Cam'ron and Jim Jones arrived at a high-profile industry gala, both dressed in diamonds and designer fits, pretending like the Cold War between them hadn't reached nuclear levels, smiling for the flashing lights while quietly plotting their next move. And while the champagne flowed in the VIP section, the backstage area was loaded with tension so thick you could slice it with a G-Unit chain, because these weren't just rap stars, they were former best friends turned business rivals, with years of resentment simmering underneath their tailored suits. And when the cameras weren't watching, the insults started flying, first in whispers, then in raised voices. And when Cam'ron reportedly called Jim Jones a washed-up sidekick and questioned his loyalty, Jones snapped. And what followed was a full-on war zone. Bottles crashed, chairs flew, bodies slammed into walls, and Dipset security couldn't stop it because this wasn't a fight anymore. It was a reckoning. And as Cam allegedly shoved Jim, with the force of a decade's worth of betrayal, Jones flew backward, crashing into lighting equipment while crew members screamed for help. But this wasn't a Hollywood script. This was the collapse of Harlem royalty, live and unfiltered. And within minutes, the police were on the scene, arresting both men while paparazzi swarmed and fans screamed through barricades, unable to process how the same brothers who built an empire on loyalty could destroy it with fists and fury. And here's the kicker: the fight wasn't about a single moment, it was about everything. Because behind the success of Dipset was a ticking time bomb of creative control, financial deception, and growing egos. And the whispers had been circulating for years, that Cam was cutting solo deals behind Jim's back, that Jim was planning to launch his own label and poach Dipset artists, that they hadn't trusted each other since the early 2010s, and that reunion tours were just for the cameras, not the crew. And that night, all the secrets burst out in one explosive confrontation, as Jim Jones allegedly accused Cam'ron of stealing royalties, blackballing him from endorsements, and manipulating the Dipset brand into a one-man empire. And Cam, never one to back down, reportedly called Jim a pawn who forgot who made him, triggering the moment where brotherhood turned into blood sport. And when fans found out the fight wasn't just a rumor, but real footage was circulating, the internet exploded, memes flooded Twitter, and Dipset stans were forced to pick sides, with some blaming Cam for never sharing power and others blaming Jim for going rogue. But no one could deny one fact: the legends were done pretending, and the war was public now, with court cases, sponsorship deals in flames, and record labels hitting pause on all Dipset business. And while Cam'ron's real estate ventures and clothing lines were suddenly under fire, Jim's solo career took a brutal hit, losing a six-figure fashion collab overnight. And just like that, two Harlem icons were reduced to tabloid chaos, all because the trust that once bonded them had quietly rotted from the inside. And if you thought that was the peak of the drama, think again. Because after the fight, both men were hit with potential felony assault charges, property damage claims from the venue, and rumors of pending lawsuits by crew members injured in the melee. And according to sources close to the situation, this wasn't Cam and Jim's first backstage argument. It was just the first one to go nuclear. And insiders say there had been multiple, almost fights during Dipset's recent tour dates, including one incident in Atlanta where Jim allegedly refused to take the stage until Cam apologized for violating him in an interview. And while Dipset tried to present a united front, the truth was leaking fast. Cam had been making business moves without informing the team, securing solo ventures, endorsement deals, and even ghostwriting credits under separate contracts. That cut Jim out completely. And Jim had been building quiet alliances within the crew, trying to form a splinter group under his own leadership. And the night of the fight was just the explosion after years of secret warfare. But the aftermath was even more brutal than the punch that started it all. Jim Jones was rushed to the hospital with minor injuries and possible head trauma, while Cam'ron spent the night in jail, reportedly refusing to speak to police without legal counsel. And Dipset's inner circle began leaking statements to blogs, each trying to paint their guy as the victim. But the fans weren't buying it. This wasn't just beef, it was betrayal. And even the most loyal Dipset followers were struggling to justify what went down, especially as sponsors like Hennessy and Puma began pulling support. and a major streaming platform allegedly canceled an upcoming Dipset documentary, citing reputation risks. And the fallout was devastating, not just for Cam and Jim, but for every artist, crew member, and affiliate caught in the crossfire. And now the hip-hop world is left asking, how did it get this far? How did Harlem's most iconic duo implode in such spectacular fashion? And most of all, can Dipset survive this, or is this the final chapter? Because while both men are out on bail and reportedly cooling off, sources say they haven't spoken since the fight, and lawyers are now handling everything, including brand rights, royalties, and tour obligations. And while Cameron was spotted leaving court in a hoodie and shades, silent and tight-lipped, Jim has reportedly begun reaching out to mutual friends, expressing regret but also blaming Cam for always trying to play God. And the streets are buzzing with theories. Some say this was all a publicity stunt gone wrong. Others claim a hidden hand was manipulating both men from the inside. But what's certain is this: the Dipset dream is hanging by a thread, and no one knows if it can be stitched back together, especially as more footage leaks showing the fight from different angles, each one exposing just how brutal and raw the moment really was. And fans who grew up on Oh Boy and Ballin' are left heartbroken watching their heroes self-destruct in real time. With Instagram lives, apology tweets, and diss tracks flying in all directions. And while some pray for reconciliation, others say it's too late. The damage is done, the brand is tainted, and the legacy is stained. And whether they admit it or not, this wasn't just a brawl. It was a funeral for the Dipset brotherhood. And no press statement, no remix, no reunion tour can bring back what they lost in those few chaotic minutes backstage. Because when you build an empire on loyalty and then betray it, the fall is louder than the rise. And now Cameron and Jim Jones are both facing their darkest hour, their reputations in ruins, their empires bleeding, and their fans watching with disbelief as the kings of Harlem crumble under the weight of their own ambition. And as the dust settles, one question remains. Is this the end of Dipset? Or just the beginning of a war for the throne?